My favourite part of the show, speaking to Sister Musama Jafar on our one-to-one discussion. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Another question that I have for you. I wanted to speak about blended families. Do you think we have enough of them in the community in terms of interracial marriages? And have the traditional sense of family changed?
I think there is more interracial marriages nowadays as the culture's diluting. I think, before it was something that because your culture identified who you were, it was very difficult for you then to marry into another culture. Whereas now I think sort of living in the West, you've taken on the British culture and things like that. So I think it is changing.
But I don't really see it. I've seen, how many have I seen? I mean, when I speak about blended families, I'm referring to, say, black and white or pink and blue or other colours available. But I'm surprised, because in the Sunni community, it's quite common, it's quite natural. It's like almost when you become Muslim, the door is flung wide open most of the time.
You don't feel it is within the Shia world?
I haven't seen it. I really haven't.
In the doors being flung open or the actual marriage prospects?
The marriage. It's
Okay.
We can talk to you and have dinner and be friends, but when it comes to marriage, I don't think you fit in. But maybe it has, and if it has, you can tell me more.
I feel that it has more now. I mean, we've still got a long way to go, and it's something that I think each individual obviously has to decide. I don't think it's a racial problem as such. I think it's with the younger generation, with the new generation. I think it's more to do with how much am I willing, how important is my culture to me? Because obviously, you'd have to sort of give in into cultures and things like that. There'd be a lot of sort of compromises and things happening. So, you need to sort of, again, self-evaluate yourself and see whether you're able to do that and everything. I mean, I find that kids who are brought up here prefer to marry someone who's been brought up here, even if it's not from the same culture, rather than marrying from the same culture who's been brought up back home, because the mindset is just so different.
I understand.
So I don't think there's a problem with sort of...
You know what surprises me? Maybe I'm just too out there, but I don't know of any scholars, well, not that you often see their wives or vice versa, the scholar who's a female, obviously he's married to a man. I don't see them being an example of blended families. But when you go historically in Islam, you see there's a lot of, intermarriages between cultures and communities. Why do you think that is? I mean, they're heads of our community. I'm sure they would want to continue that tradition.
No, for sure. I don't think it's something that they've done consciously. I think being scholars, they're probably, spent so much time studying and, then, giving lectures and being there for the community that, when a proposal is, sort of brought to them, if they feel that this person has what they're looking for, then they would go ahead with it. I don't think they'd sort of, a lot of the times usually you'd meet someone maybe at uni who was of a different culture or a different, whereas, with the scholars, maybe because they're so in their own sort of little world with their studies and so forth, that they would just take the easy route and just marry someone within their own culture.
So do you think parents are more open-minded now, or is it the next generation who are more open to it?
I think our generation are open-minded. I think maybe my parents, my grandparents for sure would have had a problem with it. I think our children will be even more open-minded. I think it's a work in progress. I think slowly, that acceptance and understanding of Islam and the fact that, all Muslims have equal rights and we're supposed to be brothers in faith, and we can't think of one culture or one race being better than the other. I think that is an understanding that you have to get to.
You're prominent in the community. I wanted to ask you, what have you seen in terms of remarriages or second marriages or how any third marriages, whatever, and blended families when it comes to, say, stepchildren, half children? Has it been a smooth transition for most people? I'm just thinking, because often we say that the children should be with the males. I'm thinking, what have you seen? Is it?
I think it differs depending on each relationship. A lot of the times the father feels that the mother can take care of the children better, and so he gives the children to the mother to take care of, and then sees them, you know, on a regular basis. Sometimes the father wants, because it's his right, he wants the custody of the children, so he has the children. I think maybe to point out the hijab issue.
Yes, I was going to say, could you
Yeah.
clarify that? Because I have a friend who's got it backwards and has done for 15 years,
Oh,
but
poor
we
thing.
didn't know. Well,
Okay.
we got the wrong information. So what is the hijab
So
issue with that?
if you have a man coming into a marriage with his own children,
Right.
and marrying a woman from a previous marriage, who's got children from a previous marriage,
Yes.
okay, once their marriage is consummated,
Mm-hmm.
all those children become mahram to both of them.
Okay.
So his children will become mahram to her, her children will become mahram to him,
Okay.
although they're not both of their children.
Mm-hmm.
Then there will be no hijab issue there at all. But between the children, they will never be mahram to each other. So his daughter
Right.
and her son
The daughter has to wear hijab.
would have to in front of her stepbrother, because there is no blood connection there at all.
Okay. Break that down for me again. I'm just so shocked by
Okay.
it.
So say
So
if
it's
you
the daughter, the daughter from the mother's side, for example, doesn't have to wear a hijab in front of the stepfather.
yes, because the marriage has been consummated. The marriage has to
But
be
she has
consummated
to wear hijab in
front of his
her
son. In front
Right.
of his son, who is her stepbrother. But if they have a child together,
Right.
then that
Which is
child will be mahram to all of them, because they have a parent that they share
So she doesn't have to wear hijab, obviously.
in front of any of them, because then they've got a parent that they share.
But that's really problematic. Who thinks of that when they remarry, for example? I mean, in terms of the hijab issue, because a lot of the time you think, okay, it's a halal thing and I don't have
But there's
to, because
nothing that connects them on a bloodline. So therefore the hijab has to be there, because there is a possibility that they could get married if they wanted to.
yes, so the stepbrother and stepsister could get married.
Because there's nothing that connects them in a bloodline.
Okay, that's just blown my mind. So the mother, just to clarify, doesn't have to wear hijab with both the husband's children or her. Yeah, she doesn't have
Obviously, she doesn't have to have front
to
of her
wear. No,
children.
the husband's children.
As
but
long as
it-
the marriage is consummated.
Right, but her daughter would need to wear hijab with her stepbrother or half brother. I don't know what it would be.
Stepbrother, it's not
Stepbrother,
half-brother,
yeah, stepbrother.
Because half-brother would mean that they have a parent that they share.
Yeah. What about the grandparents and the uncles and the everybody who
So
comes
again,
on?
then the same thing works. So if your father is mahram to you, then your grandfather, your great grandfather, and all the blood relatives of your father are mahram to you.
What happens after the people who got married? Just to make it really complicated, the people who got married then got divorced. Then what would happen? Then they would continue to wearing.
No, so he would still, because she can never marry him, because once the marriage is consummated, she can never marry, the daughter can never marry her stepfather.
Right.
So he would still be mahram to her, but obviously then the wife would then have to wear hijab once the iddah period was over, if she divorced her husband, like in a normal divorce.
Okay, that's so interesting, because the person I know has done it the other way. She wears hijab and everybody doesn't, but she wears hijab in front of
her
the
stepchildren.
in front of the stepchildren, which has caused huge problems because unintentionally, but she thought she was doing the right thing. So,
but again, it's the hijab thing is it's who you can and who you can't marry. So for example, God forbid if my husband and I got divorced, I would never have to wear hijab in front of my father-in-law. But I would have to start wearing hijab in front of my husband after the iddah period was over.
I'm just trying to process it. I completely understand now. But I just feel that these things are not covered enough, and you really have to dig deep. With every decision that you make, you need to really go through the,
I mean, the rules are there, but it's a matter of sort of, again, empowering ourselves and actually educating ourselves so that we know exactly what, God wants from us. I think a lot of the times we sort of think logically and think, oh, I'm supposed to do it this way. Or we ask friends.
What about the issue of touching someone who you may be related, for example, cousins, after a certain age, or another family member, or even a non-mahram? How does that work? For example, my example, when after I became baligh and stuff, my aunt's husband always liked to like pull my cheeks and stuff, like being friendly. My granddad would get really angry because he would say, that's really inappropriate. And he would be like, well, we're still kids, around 9 or whatever. And he didn't understand it. So, you know, sometimes we can get a little bit carried away. Can you clarify?
Again, the ruling is that, you know, if once you become baligh, then the hijab comes into it, and obviously with the physical touching then is not appropriate. You can't do that.
Cousins, male cousins.
Again, male cousins you can marry, but you can marry them, and we have. I mean, within our community, there is a lot of cousin marriages happening.
Well, how do you break that news? Because it's almost like you wake up at 12 o'clock at midnight. You're now baligh. Everything changes.
I don't think it should be done that drastically. It's the same as, you know, not your daughter not wearing hijab and then all of a sudden on her 9th, again, Islamic birthday, not the Western birthday, because the Islamic calendar is about 11 days shorter.
Right.
So you become 9 Islamically well before you become 9 on your English birthday.
I know, you've got to get the calendar out.
There are lots of programs and apps now that you can actually put your, you know, your English date in, and it gives your Islamic date to you.
Sure enough.
So yeah, but again, I think, you know, I think parents are being very optimistic if they feel that they do, you know, they haven't introduced hijab to their daughter at all. They don't, you know, they haven't talked.
Yeah.
And then at the age of 9, okay, now you have to wear it. It doesn't work like that.
And you can't play with, process. You know.
Yeah, it's a slow process. I think, you know, that you slowly, you know, you have to sort of say, because you're getting older, you know, there has to be a barrier there. You can't sort of play like you used to when you were little. And, you know, and then as they become, you know, older and older, then obviously once they become baligh, then it's okay, now there can't be any physical touch happening.
But how do you explain that to everybody else? Okay, in your household, that's fine. But what about, say, cousins, other family members who may not be, maybe Muslim, but they may not be practicing Muslim or adhere to those things, or even with friends?
Again, I think as parents, you know, if we feel strongly about something and we can see the value in it, then we would do it. It's like, you know, I have friends who are very particular about the diet that their children have. And, you know, even when they drop them off to their parents' house, they will say that there's certain things that that child's not allowed to eat. So, for example, you know, giving them sugary and, or, you know, or coloured things and everything. And if we can be that strong-willed about things like that, which affect the physical body, why would we not be so strong-willed about something that affects our soul, which is who we are, which will continue on the journey after we leave behind this physical body? So
much to talk about. We need another episode. I do hope you've enjoyed this episode. I look forward to seeing you soon.